welcome Harald Hasselmann.
Thank you for inviting me to this presentation. And as it was said in the introduction, yes, I'm here to explain how we measure uncertainty. I'm here to explain how people navigate through uncertainty. And I'm here to tell you how we think this should be translated to individuals and to society. So a long story, I could talk for hours. Don't worry, it will only take about 20 minutes. It's all based on the Ipsos Global Trends Survey. And as you might know, research normally is about many numbers and many words to tell you about the numbers. So I would like to avoid to show too many numbers. It's only one slide with numbers, but unfortunately you will have a few slides where you need to read a little bit, but you will manage, I'm sure. But I'm very happy that I can start with 4 photos. So not too many numbers, not too many words. This is my agenda for today. I will take you through this journey along these 4 chapters, and I hope you will then afterwards have a grip on how we measure, how we analyze, and how we might navigate uncertainty in today's times. Just one slide on our global survey. So we do this Ipsos Global Survey in 33 countries around the globe. Today I will only show one slide on Germany. But if you have interest in more numbers, no problem to show and to share. And as it was said, I lived in Johannesburg in South Africa for a while. I lived in Norway, in Oslo, in Nordics for a couple of years, and in Amsterdam. So I can tell you a lot about different cultures, different countries, and how to share different values and trends in certain societies. I think it's important for you to understand what our theory of change looks like. We think there are macro forces who drive change on a more global level across the world. These will be then influencing shifts in society in today's life. And if there are some interruptions in your life, like COVID-19, there will be signals that express current change in behavior in today. So we think on 3 levels change is happening, but driven very much by macro forces, translated into shifts or values, and then going into signals. And finally, we can describe the world and the navigating of uncertainty with dealing with trends or futures or foresights like we do it in our model. So I won't go into too much detail here, but I have to show you shortly what we think the 6 global macro forces are. These 6 macro forces, like dynamic populations, elderly and reduced populations in the northern hemisphere, while growing and very young populations in the southern hemisphere, growing inequality but also opportunity to grow in certain areas, geopolitical tensions, quite actual at the moment with the war in Ukraine, but also in other parts of the world you have these tensions. Data world and technology, how do we deal with these elements of our life and how do they impact us and how we deal with uncertainty? And finally, the fragile planet, climate change, but also today, of course, COVID-19 impacting the fragility of this planet. These 6 macro forces are very much acting on a global level. They are long-term. We can't influence them just over a couple of weeks or months. So what we recognize is that due to COVID-19 or to the war in Ukraine or to the problems around energy that we face in many countries at the moment, yes, we have impact on our life, but no, we don't have that much impact for now, on global macro forces. This might happen step by step, but the first thing is that impact will happen on signals and on shifts. These shifts that I'm explaining in a minute are very obviously describing the uncertainties that we have to face at the moment in most societies around the globe. And what we have identified in our research, and this is our monthly survey that is called What Worries the World. We do it again in many countries. 28 participating countries are there. And at the moment, Germany is, in terms of worries, led by inflation and by poverty and social inequality. This is quite similar to many other countries, while the other 3 that I mentioned there are very German-specific. That is climate change, still in Germany, quite on top of our agenda of what worries us. very different to many other countries meanwhile. It is, of course, military conflict. This is very on top of the worries in Germany, in Poland, and in some other European countries, while, of course, not too present in many other countries around the globe. And finally, coronavirus, but declining month by month. The coronavirus was on top for many months in Germany and other countries, but it's now going back because we know we are more and more able to manage it in a way. So therefore, for now, the inflation and the inequality drivers are the ones who are worrying us and that are making us uncertain in how to manage life and our future. If you look at how we feel in our country at the moment, we see that only 43% of people think that Germany is moving into the right direction, while 57% think we are on the wrong track. And this red element of this curve is increasing. So people feel more and more uncertain and are worrying about how Germany might develop, of course impacted by the shifts and the trends that are more and more getting in reality in our society. But we have to recognize Germans are getting more and more worried about how the country and the government are leading this country and how we are moving into a certain direction. This is less in many other countries, but of course there are countries where we see more people thinking about being on a wrong track. But for Germans, normally, due to Angela Merkel being around for 16 years and giving some stability to this country, while other things like the war or inflation or the energy issues were not that present at that time. At that time, we were by far more thinking that Germany is moving into the right direction, while today we are not. Looking at what we do in our shifts and trends survey, we start with interviewing people and asking them across a number of statements how they think they are relevant for them or for society. And what we identify very quickly is, yes, uncertainty is a key driver of today's feeling. Uncertainty is very present in our society because world and life are changing fast. For many people are changing too fast. And there are two trends, two shifts that we did identify as the drivers for uncertainty. That is first, the fear of the future, how we call it, where people think a world and my life are getting rapidly out of control. I'm managing more and more my family, my job, my neighborhood in a way that is driven by unclarity, by missing control, by not knowing about what's next. This is also linked to this overwhelmed feeling. So while fear of the future is more the view into the future, the overwhelming is listening to yourself. And listening to yourself means that people feel overwhelmed, that the change is very fast, they can't manage it, they can't cope with it, and they see there is a desire to simplify. Many people think it's getting too complex, it's getting too multipolar influenced, and I'm looking for something that helps me to simplify my point of view, to simplify my life, and to help me to step back and to relax at some point, and people are missing that. And linked to these two key shifts and trends that we are recognizing in society, there's an overall society shift that we see. That is that the world and society are getting more and more fragmented. And we see this effect of the missing middle. We see on the top and on the bottom, on the left, on the right of society, more and more people moving there. But we also recognize that the classical middle in Germany and other Western countries is eroding and is lacking support by people. Therefore, linked to that, there is an effect that people are getting more and more into a way of isolation, of loneliness, and feeling not well connected to where they stand and how they live. There are a lot of publications all around that call it singularization or the paternoster effect, where you see in terms of education, in terms of social class, in terms of income, in terms of how and where you live, there is a paternoster effect of people moving up more and more, while other people are moving down more and more. And the middle is getting free, is getting less attended by people. So we have this missing middle as a general impact on our society, and in general impact how shifts and values are measured in society at the moment. And these three elements, fear of the future, feeling overwhelmed, and facing a fragmented world, are the definition of uncertainty and complexity from our point of view, based on research that we did in so many countries. Even the International Monetary Fund said that the vicious circle of inequality destroys trust in democratic institutions, which will lead to social unrest if politicians and citizens do not actively counteract it. So even the global institutions like the IMF are recognizing the danger and the risk for our societies and the democracy to get kicked out, or to get overwhelmed by other ways of organizing a society and politics, compared to democracy that is still the stable element of most countries around the world. So how do we translate this into human needs? What does it mean for us in reality to manage uncertainty and complexity? What we've done, and I take the freedom to show you some result of research, we've put the 170 questions in our questionnaire into 36 global values. I won't show them here, don't worry. And these are translated into 4 so-called values clusters. So all people with similarities in terms of values are put in one of these 4 clusters that I will show in a minute. We will then put it in a vertical and horizontal axis to describe how differences in values could be interpreted to understand society, to understand how we see uncertainties and how we manage it in daily life. So first of all, we have close to change and being open for taking risk. 2 clusters that could be described as being more an optimistic person if you have a more individual and me focus, or somebody who's just on the way of persistent, continuous change. It means being open for change, but living more in a we focus, in a community focus, and how I organize my life. And the other 2 clusters that we recognized are, of course, then pessimism, people who don't see that much productive and positive way of how things might develop, and then those who are living in their traditional world, a little bit covered by old school lifestyle that shouldn't be wrong, but fixes them to tradition and how they think the future of society should develop is very much driven by how the good old times have been. And these 2 elements can be described as, on the top you have more a spirit of takeoff, a spirit of change and taking risk, while you on the bottom have more people who are driven by thoughtfulness, by being careful, by being a little bit resistant in change and waiting for what things might happen. And what we recognize in how we deal with uncertainty and complexity is that we think the key element in a society is to find the balance on the horizontal way. Because having people who love change, or those who love security and continuity, this is a kind of living balance in a society that does not drive a society into uncertainty or into danger. While having people very much balanced on this element between me and we is by far more driving a way of how we can handle uncertainty, how we can navigate complexity. And therefore, from our point of view, the right balance between these 2 elements, me and we, or call it into individual versus community, is the way how uncertainty should be navigated in today's times, and how we think there is more stability in the future if this is the right balance. We need both. We need the me and the we focus. And therefore, what we think is the conclusion in managing uncertainty and having a strong society in balance, that we exactly show that it needs the balance between these 2 poles, and therefore I would like to pick this up again. This is again the horizontal axis, and only if we support in our living, in our lifestyle, in the way how we manage society, neighborhood, and politics, only if we have the right balance between also the hedonistic and enjoying part of the people, with people who have focus on materialism and power, translate into a more we focus that goes to personality views and redistribution and justice. We need this balance in the society along this axis to drive it in a stable way, to drive it in a sustainable way, and to help our society to navigate complexity, to navigate uncertainty, and to live with the fact that change, yes, will happen, but we will be able to cope. Some quick impacts on how COVID-19 is more and more reality in our perception on values. This survey has been done half a year ago, so right before the war, right before all discussions around inflation and energy. So therefore, we still thought at that time, the general dynamic at that point was very much driven by behavioral change, not by attitudinal change. The people behaved simply different, and they were accepting that they have to accept some certain rules in society, in business, in their neighborhood, or how to deal with politics. But it was not really a change in attitude at that time. This might happen now, step by step, because we are facing by far more serious shifts and changes in our society. We saw and identified a view more into individual identity, going into security and resilience feeling. I think you all had this in a similar way. We were living a globalization impact. That means going into local attitude of buying close to you, buying things from the region, helping your neighborhood, but finally also trusting and relying on the fact that the global impact is still continuing. So globalization is the right word for that. We had a broader public perspective on accepting and appreciating science and supporting sustainability, not only in terms of climate change, but in terms of general lifestyle. We also saw that many companies, our clients, were pushing brand management towards authenticity and purpose. But we also said that there were a number of things that simply went on like before. Although most people claim that everything changed through COVID, if you really go into yourself, how you live and how you interpret your life, how you choose your friendships, your job, or your product that you purchase, you will see many things are still like they were before. So don't think everything changed. So finally, how can we shape life areas based on the knowledge that we have on identifying complexity and uncertainty, how we think this could be translated into human needs that we also analyze. And we think there are three areas that people should really be active on to manage and cope with uncertainty. First thing is authenticity in life and consumption. That means, like I said here, search for meaning and respect. Sustainability in consumption, also supporting climate protection, and also leveraging the world of data in a good way for me and not in a dangerous way for me. So being authentic should drive my choice making in every day and every moment. Second thing is shaping my life and working space, being active. Have the ownership about how you design your life, being clear in what you want, and go for it. It means the first thing is more, again, listening into yourself, feeling authentic, do what you really stand for, and here it is, do it. And really be active and shape your living and working space, as I said there, design your future, and help yourself, your friends, and all people around you to move to the next level. And finally, for society, this means living community. As I said, changing from the me to the we agenda. We all think that we are so much community-oriented and we like to share, but listen into yourself. How much are you able to share your spaces, your way of how you consume, your money that you earn? Are you willing to share? I think this is a question that we all should ask ourselves again and again, because participation and care is what drives the future stability of our society, which drives the future way of how politics should act, and they have started to act in that way. Hopefully they will get supported by the people as much as they expected. So acting interconnected, generates most benefit to all of us. So we have here the view into society, the view into how we live and how we deal, and this is what we need to change the world into something that helps us to manage uncertainty and complexity. And finally, managing change responsibly in business and politics and also in private life means handling growing complexity by keeping this balance that I just mentioned between me and we, and also by keeping the balance in terms of managing the community and where we live and how we would like to live in the future. This means that also our clients, our people who manage brands need to think about their consumers as consumers, but also as citizens. And this is what we need to accept, that we are not only consumers who spend money and who are happy to consume, we are also citizens and part of this country. And therefore, people who are doing brand management need to do this translation from consumers to citizens. And finally, and this is a mantra from my Nordic time in Norway and also in Sweden and Denmark, freedom and responsibility is the way how people in Nordic countries understand their contribution to society, how they live and how they survive, and how they really accept, yes, I'm a free person, but I have responsibility for all others. And this will help us to stay close to our challenges, to recognize uncertainty and complexity, to translate this into our human needs, and finally to make change happen and to help us and our people around the globe to live in a world that is no longer being too dangerous, but helps us to live in certainty and in security. And finally, we measure and anticipate how these key uncertainties will play out. Yes, we can. And this might translate to future changes. And if you need to understand more, I'm happy to tell you. And please catch up with me. And I'm giving you examples from all around the globe to many questions. And because I can talk for hours about this subject. Thank you very much.